It's 7:15, and I'd like to begin the public session. Signed up to speak, we have two speakers. Please step up to the podium, state your name and address, and please try to limit it to 5 minutes. First speaker is Chris Jones.
Chris Jones, 130 East 3rd Street here in Oswego. Usually we come up here after events and kind of give an after-action report on what took place. Obviously, we're talking about the St. Patrick's Day Parade. Nothing but positive things to say about it. It went great. One of the things I'll say is that I think it's easy for people to say they support something. But we're those people that, we really believe in action more than talk, and the community really stood up. Support often comes in the form of financial investment. It comes in the form of resources, time, and energy, and the community did all those things to make the event possible, which is fantastic. Our numbers overall exceeded 3,000 people at the event. The numbers from the restaurants, the bars, the stores were phenomenal. In most cases, those places doubled what their normal business was. GS Steamers, I spoke with the owner there. They actually quadrupled their numbers, which is amazing. I only accounted for 25% of that increase, so overall they still had a very good return. Overall, just a fantastic event. Community support, city services were all fantastic. One of our friends came in from out of town and arrived late, and their response was, when they got into town, it was like the event never took place because everything was clean. There was a lot of people and people that were out in the community. It looked great, and we received pictures from Rochester and other areas where after their event, there was trash everywhere. So I'm very thankful for everything that City Services did put in, and thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Heath Jones.
Heath Jones, also 130 East 3rd Street. Kind of echoing what Chris said, but really kind of hitting home with often students from the college kind of get a bad rep in the community. And I just wanted to kind of report a little bit of what went down this weekend. We had 40 college students that volunteered for the parade, both for safety along the parade route and to also clean up afterwards. So just one of those things to kind of keep in mind when we hear so many things about the college and that kind of relationship. So just another positive thing about this weekend's event. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak during public session? Miles.
Thank you, Mayor, Alderman, councilors, whatever your title is now. I would just like to commend that parade. That was hard work, suddenly, off the top of your head, so to speak. I think you did a good job. And I hope Peter Coleman's jealous after all the money he took out of this community and appliances. Okay, I've been listening to the, a couple days ago, I was listening to complaints about how this Bridge Street looks here. Needs trees, needs dressing up. And I had to remind somebody that you got to get out of town to see what it really looks like in the Northeast. I took a train ride 12 years ago to Milwaukee, and it looked like Dresden in World War II out there. The cement walls were just crushed right down next to the track. I couldn't believe how bad it was. Then you look at Syracuse. They got half that southern side of Syracuse is all plywooded up. I don't see anything on Bridge Street like that. If it does, I'm blind. I haven't seen anything that bad over there. Maybe there's a couple houses that may need a little sprucing up, I guess would be the word, okay? But the negativity sometimes, I think, doesn't need to be that harsh. This city's doing better than a lot of them. And I know a lot of cities in this state of New York who don't have 3 nuke plants sitting out there with a steam station. At least it's contributing something. You got to go down to Steuben in Allegheny County and see what it's like to be in Appalachia, because it's bad down there. And there's a lot of counties in this state that are in bad shape financially and infrastructure. Take a look around. The other day on the radio, they said Albany, the city of Albany, has still got wooden water pipes up there. Do you know how old those things are? They got to be 200 years old. How'd you like to be drinking water out of them wooden pipes? I'd much rather drink the lead out of Flint. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak during public session? Seeing none, I will adjourn public session. Regular meeting begins at 7:30. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Will you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will clerk please call the roll?
His Honor the Mayor,
Here.
Councilor Reynolds, Councilor McLaughlin,
Here.
Councilor Emmons,
Here.
Councilor Walker,
Here.
Councilor Gozick,
Here.
Councilor Van Buren,
Is excused.
Councilor Cordino.
Here.
6 present, 1 excused.
Thank you. Under the mayor's report, I would just like to echo the sentiments from our two public speakers, and I was honored to be the Grand Marshal for the St. Patrick's Day Parade, and I was impressed with the crowd. Obviously, the weather was outstanding, but the event was organized quite quickly, and I really didn't expect that many people to be there for the parade, and I just want to thank Create and Heath and Chris, and thank you for coming tonight. You did an excellent job, and hopefully it's an event that will continue well into the future. So thank you. I'd like to talk about Route 48 for a minute. We're working in partnering with the state DOT, working to evaluate exactly what is wrong with Route 48. The state has been kind enough and very cooperative. They're conducting an analysis and testing and really evaluating what the real problem is. I can tell you it's going to be a serious, long-term, larger project that will take, it will last well into the summer, just based on everything that's wrong up there. There's some serious issues with the integrity of the ground up there, and it's going to take a while to be fixed. But the state is actually evaluating it, and once they are finished evaluating it, they're providing us some information, and it will be our job to repair Route 48. In the meantime, Route 48 was reopened today as a one-lane heading outbound. So if you're leaving the city, you can go on Route 48. It's a single lane. At the top of the hill is a three-way stop sign, so that if you're coming into town, you have to stop and take a left. If you're on one street, you have to stop and take a right. And if you're coming out, you still have to stop and either go straight or take a left or take a right on one. I would still encourage people to please use Murray Street and please use 5th Street and avoid that area if you can. But if you have to go that way, it is open one-way outbound. I was over to the fire department. As a pet owner, this always bugged me that I could never find these around town. They're the pet stickers that you put on your door. You say, you know, I have 1 dog, 2 cats, or whatever it may be, so if your house catches on fire, the firemen know. Wasn't able to find one in stores, so I went over to the fire department. I said, we need to get these, so they're in. You can stop over or call the firehouse, 343-2161, or stop over. They can mail them to you, or you can stop over at the East Side Firehouse and pick up one. They are free, courtesy of OFD. I also want to touch on the Community Development Office and some of the work that's been going on there. Was busy last week and the week before that dealing with some news that stems from, I don't want to say past administration, but from previous years, and that was in early February we were contacted by the New York State Homes and Community Renewal regarding a 2009 home grant that the city was given. This was a $400,000 grant we were awarded to help with the rehabilitation of 16 properties. The state was monitoring our compliance, reviewing our compliance on this program, and found that we were out of compliance in several areas. They became concerned. So in February, we were contacted, and they said that the $400,000 grant was going to be recaptured by the state due to non-compliance. We would have to pay back the $400,000 within 30 days. So the Community Development Director, Justin, got to work, and in less than 2 weeks he was able to prevent that from happening and close out the project and put the city in compliance. So we dodged a $400,000 bullet there, thanks to Justin and his quick action. So thank you. I also just want to take one moment and thank the DPW for their work on the St. Patrick's Day Parade. And I don't think it's a stretch to say that downtown has been looking great. We're making a serious effort to clean up the streets, clean up downtown. We need to spend some time downtown, clean it up, and then we'll get into the neighborhoods and address some of the leftover issues from the winter. But they're doing a great job, and I can't thank them enough for their help over the weekend. With that, do the councilors have anything to add? Seeing none, I'll move on to the first resolution. Will clerk please read Resolution 81?
To approve the minutes from the Common Council meeting held February 22nd, 2016.
Councilor McLaughlin, Councilor Emmons. Any comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Cordino.
Yes.
Councilor Reynolds.
Yes.
Councilor McLaughlin.
Yes.
Councilor Emmons.
Yes.
Councilor Walker.
Yes.
Councilor Gozick.
Yes.
Resolution passes 6-1.
Clerk, please read Resolution 82.
To approve the use of the Crisafulli Ice Rink by the Oswego Lacrosse Club during the month of April.
Councilor Walker, Councilor Corradino. Any questions, comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Cordino.
Yes.
Councilor Reynolds.
Yes.
Councilor McLaughlin.
Yes.
Councilor Emmons.
Yes.
Councilor Walker.
Yes.
Councilor Gozick.
Yes.
Resolution passes 6-1.
Clerk, please read Resolution 83.
To approve the use of Washington Square Park by the Oswego County Federal Credit Union in order to host Movies in the Park to be held Wednesday evenings, June 29th and July 20th, 2016.
Councilor McLaughlin, Councilor Gozick. Any comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Cordino.
Yes.
Councilor Reynolds.
Yes.
Councilor McLaughlin.
Yes.
Councilor Emmons.
Yes.
Councilor Walker.
Yes.
Councilor Gozick.
Yes.
Resolution passes 6-1.
Clerk, please call Resolution 84.
To accept a donation of a park bench to be placed in Brightbeck Park in honor of Floyd Joe Vickery.
Councilor Walker, Councilor Reynolds. Any comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Cordino.
Yes.
Councilor Reynolds.
Yes.
Councilor McLaughlin.
Yes.
Councilor Emmons.
Yes.
Councilor Walker.
Yes.
Councilor Gozick.
Yes.
Resolution passes 6-1.
Clerk, please read Resolution 85.
To approve amusement license for the 2016 racing events at the Oswego Speedway.
Councilor Walker, Councilor McLaughlin. Any comments? Councilor Corradino.
Thank you, Your Honor. At committee last week, we discussed this briefly, as we all remember, and at the time it was passed on to the council. But since then, I've done some additional research, and I will be voting for this resolution. But I just wanted to point out that during my research, I found out that this particular fee has been at least 10 years at the same amount. And I don't know about anybody else here, but I know I've paid more for everything else in my life, gas, food, utilities, even water. So I'm thinking that, again, I'm going to vote for this tonight, but I think this should bring the issue to the forefront that we should start taking a look at fees, anything from garbage haulers to fees for any other rental business, rental of Brightbeck, anything that we have a fee for, we should take a look at and try to address and say, how long has it been and how much is it now, and should it be raised or should it not be raised? Again, I think this particular resolution kind of brings it to the forefront that 10 years is just too long to wait before you evaluate certain fees in the city. So I would hope going forward, I'm going to try to spearhead that and get some information from the clerk and have further discussions on this.
Thank you. Any other comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Cordino?
Yes.
Counselor Reynolds?
Yes.
Counselor McLaughlin?
Yes.
Counselor Emmons?
Yes.
Counselor Walker?
Yes.
Counselor Gozick?
Yes.
Resolution passes 601.
Clerk, please read Resolution 86.
To authorize a public hearing regarding proposed local law number 2 of the year 2016, a local law amending Chapter 15, Code of Ethics of the City of Oswego, New York.
Counselor Reynolds, Counselor Cordino. Before I turn this over to the council, this is one of my initiatives that I feel is important to deliver within the first 100 days of the new administration. Where this comes from is, number one, a sentiment I heard during my campaign, and that was that there's backroom deals, there's shady discussions, we're not the most transparent government, and people, quite frankly, do not, in my opinion, have a lot of trust in city government or state government, for that matter, or any government. And I want to make an honest effort to install confidence in the residents of the city of Oswego and allow them to be comfortable with the decisions we're making, be clear why we make those decisions, and I want them to know that somebody is watching, holding us accountable, holding the administration accountable, holding the counselors accountable, and making sure that we are following the Code of Ethics. After comparing our Code of Ethics to others, I feel that our code is relatively weak. Most other municipalities, particularly counties, have their own board of ethics. But I think it's important that with the decisions we make, that we have a board of ethics that's holding us accountable, making sure that everything is on the up and up, so to speak. So I feel that a city this size, with a government this size, needs a board of ethics. So I need the council to establish the board of ethics. And once we establish the board of ethics, I can appoint, the format is 3 people to the board. One person would serve as the chair. They all have to live in the city. One of those appointees has to be an employee of the city. And that way, what we'll do is I have a form here that we've drafted that if a member of the public, if a counselor, quite frankly, or if a department head have a concern, they think that something looks shady, something sounds fuzzy, they can come to the city clerk's office, they can grab one of these forms, they can fill it out, and the form's submitted to the board. The board reviews it and provides an opinion. And that opinion can be acted on by the council, and the board ultimately reports to the council. So with that, I feel that this is a huge step in the right direction to make city government much more transparent, much more clear, and I would appreciate the council's support on this. Any comments? Councilor Walker.
Thank you. I just want to tell everybody here, this is going to be voting on this to go to the public hearing. In 2 weeks, then we'll be voting on the resolution.
Any other comments? Councilor McLaughlin.
First of all, I'd like to thank you for, I think it's a good direction, a good beginning. I really think we should rethink the appointing of the board, to make that more transparent, if you know what I mean. 3-man board, maybe the mayor and the council would approve, and then they could elect each other, elect one themselves. I don't know.
So, Councilor, my response to that is just that the mayor, by city charter, appoints every other board, every other committee that the city has. I'm not sure why this one would be perceived to be any different, but if you read the charter, you can see that I appoint every committee and every board. Also, this stems a lot from my experience on the council and witnessing really what I saw on the council is that how decisions are made rarely is something just pulled out of the air. Usually there's the discussion that happens somewhere in some way, and then it turns up on the council floor or turns up in passing discussion amongst councilors. And I think it's appropriate for the mayor, just like every other municipality. My city attorney can reference New York state law. that the mayor or the executive appoint the board, just as I do every other board. With that, I'll just say that I hope that you support an ethics board. I'm not sure how you can't support it, but I'll say that this ethics board and talking about ethics didn't even occur until I brought it up, and now I'm being questioned as to, well, can he appoint it? Is he going to appoint the right people? Is he going to allow them to look at me? Well, there wouldn't be any ethics board discussion if I didn't bring it up. So obviously I'm not afraid to be looked at. I have nothing to hide. I hope that you can trust me. I was elected mayor by the entire city. I won all 7 wards, by the way, to do my job. And I understand the power struggle. I understand maybe you need something to cling on to not want this board, but it's just not a valid argument in my opinion.
Well, it's nothing personal, first of all. I believe you're doing a good job. And I am for a board of ethics. I just question whether a board of ethics appointed by one person can not be holding to the one person that appointed them. And that's not you in general, the mayor. You're not the only mayor that's going to have to live with this. And that's what I'm trying to.
Considering I'm the one that came up with appointing a board and creating a board, my job is to allow the board to do its job. Obviously, the board can't do its job if I tell it what to do. The intent of the board will be to not be biased in any way. Like I said, they're welcome to look at me. They're welcome to look at the council. They're welcome to look at department heads. I'm not going to stand in their way. If I wanted to stand in their way, I wouldn't bring it to the forefront to begin with. Councilor Emmons.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. I'd like to echo some of what you had just mentioned. I think if you start down this pathway of nitpicking in terms of what the mayor can and cannot do related to the charter, I think we're starting to go down a very slippery slope. I understand what the Councilor McLaughlin is saying regarding the ethics board, but if that line of logic is true, then why aren't we talking about your ability or not ability to put folks on the zoning board, for example, or the planning board? The mayor has this authority. I think we should honor and respect that authority. I think we're on a witch hunt here, quite frankly, in terms of in the public discourse with calling into question the mayor's responsibility and authority to appoint the board of ethics. I firmly disagree with this line of thinking. I would understand what the councilor was saying if he was also calling into question the other boards that you are able to appoint, but he's not. And I'm not sure why we're going after this board and not going after every other one that you're able to appoint. So obviously I'm firmly in support of the changes, firmly in support of the board creation as well. I think it's long overdue, and I think we just need to simply move forward with this.
I'll just add, thank you, Councilor, but I'll just add that for the folks who attend these meetings regularly, it seems like during the last administration, and councilors who are here can probably agree, it seems like we were always going into executive session for something. Here we are 3 months into the new administration. We have yet to call an executive session or go into executive session. That just is another step to prove how serious we are about being transparent. It's because we settle all of our issues out here rather than going behind closed doors. Any other comments? Seeing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councillor Cordino.
Yes.
Councillor Reynolds.
Yes.
Councillor McLaughlin.
Yes for the public hearing.
Councillor Emmons.
Yes.
Councillor Walker.
Yes.
Councillor Gozick.
Yes.
Resolution passes 601.
Clerk, please call Resolution 87.
To approve the purchase of a new dump truck for use by the Department of Public Works.
Councilor Walker, Councilor Reynolds. Before I turn it over to council, I'll just first of all thank the councilors who went over and toured the DPW garage and took a first-hand look at our equipment over there. I'll just say that one of the most surprising things to me making the transition from councilor to mayor is the level of neglect on our buildings, on our equipment, on our infrastructure in general. And I do not want to be the mayor that just continues to float things, down the river, so to speak. So if you actually, in fact, the first storm we had of the year on a Thursday, we have 6 city plows. We went in to start plowing, and one wouldn't go. So that's the one we are replacing. And if you actually go take the time to really know what you're talking about and look at our equipment firsthand and up close, you'll see that it's not just this plow that's old. It's not just this plow that's in bad shape. This is years of putting decisions off. Why don't we buy a used one? Why do we have to buy one this year? Why can't we buy one next year? And I'm not going to do that. In fact, I'm working with the city chamberlain now on a capital plan, long-term capital plan, so we can prevent this. That way we don't end up to tonight where we have 6 old snow plows and we have to forfeit some of our CHIPS money, which is reimbursable, but CHIPS money nonetheless, to buy a new plow. So, this is just unfortunately, I can tell you there's going to be more equipment purchases to come. I mean, I don't want to spend $200,000 on a plow truck any more than anybody else, but it's important to have reliable equipment, and I refuse to just kick the can down the road and not buy anything and hold the line and leave a mess for next administrations and people down the road to deal with. We're seeing what that is. We've had several years of just complete neglect and just ignoring some serious problems. So it's time to face those problems. Starting with a plow truck and developing a capital plan is a real serious start to that. So I appreciate your support on this. Any comments? Councilor Walker.
Thank you. That was well said, what you said on that. Everybody wants services. If you want your services, you got to have the equipment to do it. That's the way I look at it. Our equipment is failing. Most of it's in tough shape. They're put Band-Aids to get it on the road. So I will always support it.
Councilor Emmons.
I would just add, at some point, you can't kick the can down the road any longer. It's just simply the equipment just won't work. You can't put, a piece of sheet metal on a floor, weld it on, expect that to stay like that, which is what we have, ladies and gentlemen, is trucks that have rusted floors that the feet can go through. At some point, you just can't kick the can because the can's not going to move any farther. So yes, I would firmly agree. We have to not only purchase this truck, but I appreciate the mayor moving forward with semblance of a capital project list moving forward.
Councilor McLaughlin.
I've personally driven most of the equipment you've seen. It's about time it needs to be replaced.
Thank you. Nice to have that firsthand experience on the council. Councilor Goza.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo your sentiments as well and the other councilors. When we talk about the services being provided, it's the most important thing to the people in the city are those basic services like having their snow removed. Okay, we can talk, obviously right now, it wasn't mentioned earlier, but this is the bicentennial of Oswego County. We can promote things, talk about promoting waterfront and tourism. Bottom line is the vast majority of citizens, what they care about are those basic services and efficiency. And one of the reasons why I ran on a Republican ticket is I believe in efficient government. We need that. Like last summer, just to give an example of some of the equipment, I was down at the harbor. Okay, now it's not just a service, but an investment when we're talking about our harbor. The city owns the marina. You're down there, and the guys have pitchforks, literally old rusty pitchforks, like it's the American Gothic. There's 5 or 6 guys out there on a little scow, and they're trying to pick the seaweed out of the harbor. Everybody's moving their boats out. We're losing revenue. And no, I'm just saying I think that this is important that we do invest in equipment that's necessary so we can have more efficient operations. Hopefully it's going to be a cost-saving measure as well in the long run.
Councilor Reynolds.
I did have the opportunity to go to the DPW with Councilor Cordino this week, and I was extremely impressed with how much the DPW has put Band-Aids on the equipment, and this is not the first thing that they're going to. They've been prolonging this for a long time. It's much needed.
Thanks, Councilor. Any other comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Cordino.
Yes.
Councilor Reynolds.
Yes.
Councilor McLaughlin.
Yes.
Councilor Emmons.
Yes.
Councilor Walker.
Yes.
Councilor Gozick.
Yes.
Resolution passes 601.
Clerk, please read Resolution 88.
To approve the budget amendment to code enforcement.
Councilor Emmons, Councilor Corradino. Obviously, this was perhaps my biggest platform in item that I feel this administration needs to deliver and deliver adequately. We see all the momentum with the Oswego Renaissance Association, with folks investing back in their homes. It's trying to revitalize and restore some of these neighborhoods. The question is, what is the city doing to assist the ORA and these private citizens in restoring neighborhoods and making Oswego an attractive place to want to live, work, and raise a family? So I campaigned off of taking code enforcement duties out of the fire department and reestablishing our own code enforcement office. I'm happy to present this tonight. Of course, I appreciate the council's support on this. I worked very hard to establish what I think will be the cheapest yet most efficient code enforcement office that I could think of. I feel we were awfully creative in moving some people around who were already here in City Hall. And I'll just buzz through the structure that we came up with and kind of articulate the format of the office and what I expect out of the office. I took so essentially what I'm asking for is $234,000, and that's to just fund the office with equipment, with personnel. Most of that obviously is personnel costs. And what I did is I took Sue Deary is the city assessor. She was trained and doing code work when they closed the last code enforcement office and took it over to the Oswego Fire Department. She was more or less acting as the code director for the last 2 years anyway. So what I found is rather than hire a brand new code director, which the last time we had a code enforcement director, he was making $71,500, I would have Sue Deary act as the code enforcement director and save a substantial sum of money by having her serve in both roles. We checked that with the state and it cleared, and I think she'll do a great job. She's actually already doing it, and we're already seeing improvements in that respect. Just being organized, showing up to appointments when developers and investors have appointments, and that is one of the biggest things. Being business friendly is one of the biggest things that this code enforcement office will have to, that I will demand of this code enforcement office. Under Sue Deary will be 2 code enforcers. Those positions haven't been filled, so there's no name attached to those positions quite yet. Obviously, we had to come here to get the funding first. Those 2 positions are at a grade 17. That's $41,800 each. And they will obviously report right to Sue. Why I feel we need 2 code enforcement officers is, number one, just looking at the size of the city we're in, how many wards we have, but also each side of the river. I think it's adequate to have a code enforcer for each side of the river every day of the week. But even more than that, what I found with the previous way we were doing codes is that we weren't even prosecuting cases correctly. When we bring these cases to court, we would spend so much time on them, they would get to court, get thrown out. Why? I'm not quite sure why, but what I do know is that we need to have enough people in the office to go out, get the citations, make the case, bring the case to court, hold these landlords accountable, property owners accountable, and I feel 2 code enforcement officers are completely adequate to do that job. That allows Sue to compile the case, make sure they're thorough, while the 2 code enforcers are still out in the field. In addition to that, we have Ford Babcock. He's already budgeted. That's not a new position. He previously reported to the police department. I actually already took him out of the police department. He now reports to Sue Deary. It only makes sense. He is the complaint investigator, so if you see trash in a yard, furniture on a porch, you call him. He goes over. He answers to Sue. He is right here in City Hall, and he obviously will help in the more minor infractions that are caused in the neighborhoods. I'll say that in addition to that, we have, I'm asking for a clerk for the code enforcement office. This clerk, it's a grade 5, that's $30,500. We had a restructure in the community development office. That resulted in the elimination of a job out of that office. I took that person who was previously in that office, moved her over to the code enforcement, to be the code enforcement clerk. So she'll obviously report to Sue, but her primary focus will be, number one, to take calls and take complaints as they come in. Number two, we've been extremely lax and I'll talk about revenue in a moment, but we've been extremely lax at rental permits, making sure landlords have rental permits. We're missing out on a serious amount of revenue. Maybe rental permit reform is something we can talk about down the road, but her primary duty will be to answer phones and make sure that rental properties have permits and landlords have the proper permits. $234,000 sounds like a lot, but we're not quite asking for $234,000 free and clear. You have to figure that there was some cost associated with the fire department previously handling the code duties. That exact figure is a little tough to calculate exactly because the fire department primarily conducted code enforcement on comp time. The problem is comp time turns into overtime. For instance, I'll just give you an example of what would happen. A fireman would go over to investigate a building or issue a CO or something like that. If a call comes in, the fireman can't go to the appointment. They have to go to the call. So what happens is if their shift runs out, they would have to come back in on overtime. Obviously overtime you get 3 hours pay no matter how long you're here. They would clock in, give the CO, clock out, there's 3 hours. So overtime was going through the roof. That's undeniable. Comp time was going through the roof. That's undeniable. The trouble with calculating an exact dollar figure is that some of the comp time that the fire department created doing code work hasn't been spent. They haven't turned in that comp time and used it yet, so I can't give you a true figure on that. But my argument is even if the figure of the fire department doing codes isn't $234, say it's less, we're still paying for a business-friendly atmosphere in our code office, still paying to have an atmosphere to where people aren't hesitant to invest or build or expand a business. It's just not professional. There's no way you can operate when you have somebody on the top of Ellen Street trying to open an assisted living center. He has engineers there. He has electricians there. He has architects there. He has an appointment for a code inspection, and the fireman doesn't show up because they have to take a call. You just can't operate like that. It's not fair to really anybody. In addition, I've been very vocal about, I feel like the focus was on commercial properties, downtown business owners, commercial stores. I feel that the Code Enforcement Office needs to be focused more in neighborhoods. Obviously, that is what the primary objective of this office will be. And I'll just say that if we really want to make a difference in our neighborhoods, I feel that my administration, the success or failure of my administration relies on how adequate and how good of a job this Code Enforcement Office can do. I've had a lot of my time consumed with creating this. I spent a lot of time, worked very hard on this, and I will obviously have my hands in this once the code office gets going, but for quite a while until I feel it's doing the job it needs to do. I'll finish up, just to compare what the office was when it was shut down to the new salaries we have now. The old director was making $71,500. The inspector was making $49,800. The secretary was making $42,000. We're lower on all three of those positions, obviously. And I'm just looking through real quick, going back to comp time. 4,300 hours of comp time was directly related to codes. They still have about half of that banked, so you can do the math. I'll also just say that fire department overtime is down. If you compare it to where we are at this point in time this year and compare it to last year, we're below what it was, so that's a good sign. And any other questions, I'm happy to take. Councilor Walker.
I have a question for you. I'd like to, because tell the public this. If they come in for a building permit now, they're going to go to the third floor, and it's going to be a one-stop shop like Walmart. You go in there, then go downstairs, pay your fees, right? Is that how it's like one of the fire department floors?
One-stop shop. You're going to go up to the third floor. That's where our permit coordinator is. That's where the Code Enforcement Office will be. Previously, on the third floor, you get off the elevator, you take a right. There was the engineering department, and they were scattered all throughout that section of the third floor. What we did is we took the engineering department, moved it all on the right side of that portion. So when you walk in, you are greeted by the code enforcement office, with the exception of Ford Babcock. He will stay in the basement. Quite frankly, he's out in the field most of the time anyway. We simply just didn't have one more office up there, so that's not really a big deal in my opinion. But it will be a one-stop shop. You get your building permit, any engineering analysis you need, any engineering work, any code requirements you're going to need is going to be up there. Code enforcement office is obviously up there. And that's another, I'm glad you brought it up, I forgot it, but that's important to me that it's organized. Now you walk up to the third floor, you're not running to the fire department, you're not running downstairs, you're not running back upstairs, you're not waiting for Tuesday or next Sunday or next Friday. It's going to be a one-stop shop. So that's another very valuable asset to this department. Councilor Emmons.
I would just simply state that any effectively run city needs to have a codes office and an efficiently run codes office. And Mr. Mayor, I think you have, and along with the new director, have a big challenge for you in terms of code enforcement. I think it was the wrong place to have in the fire department. Given my experience with the previous codes department via construction, I think there's a lot of improvement, let's just say, that need to happen in terms of our ability to effectively enforce our codes within the city. So I applaud this effort. I think it's absolutely necessary, but I think it's a huge challenge moving forward to have folks that are involved in building and construction, and doing those things, understand that that we do have inspections, we do have people that are focused on this. There are processes and procedures that need to take place, and oh, by the way, we are going to enforce them moving forward, and not just simply walk into a house and say everything looks good and leave that house. Certainly was my experience in the past. So I applaud your efforts. I think you have a tough road ahead.
Before we call roll, I'll just give a little bit more information because I can hear the naysayers and the contrarians say it could have been done cheaper. I don't think anybody can dispute 2 code enforcement officers is what we need, at least. I mean, I would like to have several. There's certainly no shortage of work. But if you just break down the figures, you take wages, and that equals $131,425. $131,425. Social Security is $10,000. Retirement's $27,000. Life insurance $720. Disability $201. And health is $65,000. So you see how the numbers, quickly add up just with 2 code enforcers. So there aren't any more questions. So I'll have the clerk call the roll. Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Cordino.
Yes.
Counselor Reynolds.
Yes.
Counselor McLaughlin.
Yes.
Counselor Emmons.
Yes.
Counselor Walker.
Yes.
Counselor Gozick.
Yes.
Resolution passes 601.
I have pulled Resolution 89. We'll move on to, clerk, please read Resolution 90.
To approve the attendance at a Safe School Seminar to be held March 15th and 16th, 2016, in Buffalo, New York, at the request of Tori Decare, Police Chief.
Councilor McLaughlin, Councilor Reynolds. Any comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Cordino.
Yes.
Counselor Reynolds.
Yes.
Counselor McLaughlin.
Yes.
Counselor Emmons.
Yes.
Counselor Walker.
Yes.
Counselor Gozick.
Yes.
Resolution passes 601.
Clerk, please read Resolution 91.
To approve attendance at the First Line Supervisors School to be held April 11th through the 29th, 2016, in Solvay, New York, at the request of Tori Decare, Police Chief.
Councilor McLaughlin, Councilor Walker. Any comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Cordino.
Yes.
Counselor Reynolds.
Yes.
Counselor McLaughlin.
Yes.
Counselor Emmons.
Yes.
Counselor Walker.
Yes.
Counselor Gozick.
Yes.
Resolution passes 601.
Any unfinished business? Councilor Walker, Councilor Cordino. Please call the roll.
Counselor Cordino.
Yes.
Counselor Reynolds.
Yes.
Counselor McLaughlin.
Yes.
Counselor Emmons.
Yes.
Counselor Walker.
Yes.
Counselor Gozick.
Yes.
Resolution passes 601.
Meeting is adjourned.